The Pope Who Said No. What a title, right? Let's get right into it. We're talking about one of the most, brilliant but also really controversial religious thinkers of the 20th century. And the way we're going to explore her story is through this, it's a fascinating lens.
So just picture this for a moment. What if the Church's sharpest, most vocal critic
suddenly became its most powerful leader? I mean, what if they were put in charge of the whole shebang? That's the incredible what if our source material uses to really dig into the life and conflicts of this truly remarkable woman.
So let's kick things off with our first section, the rebel on the throne. It's time to meet her. Her name is Uta Ranke-Heinemann, and let me tell you, her story is basically a masterclass in what it means to have intellectual courage.
And look, Uta Ranke-Heinemann wasn't just some random critic shouting from the sidelines. No, she was a giant in her field, a best-selling author, and maybe most importantly, a genuine history maker. She shattered one of the highest glass ceilings, or maybe stained glass ceilings, in the church, becoming the very first woman ever to hold a chair in Catholic theology.
Okay, so let's be super clear here. She never actually became the Pope. That didn't happen. But what our source material does is it uses this incredible what-if scenario, imagining her as Pope Uta, to explore her very real, lifelong critiques of the Church. It's just a really clever way to show us exactly what she was fighting for and what she was fighting against.
All right, let's move on to our next section, dogma versus modern reason. And this was her first huge battle. And we're not talking about church politics or petty disagreements here. No, this went right to the core, to the fundamental stories at the very heart of the faith.
Okay, so this is important because it really helps clear something up that a lot of people mix up. You've got the virgin birth, that's about Jesus being conceived without a biological father. Then you've got the immaculate conception. That's about Mary herself being conceived without original sin. Two different things. And Ranke-Heinemann's most famous conflict? It was all about that first one, the biological reality of the virgin birth.
And then came the quote, the one that basically lit the fuse. In a public speech, she just said it. It was so direct, so honest, and for the church hierarchy, it was an act of intellectual rebellion they absolutely could not let slide.
And the hammer came down fast. The church's response was swift and, frankly, severe. They revoked her license to teach Catholic theology. You have to understand, for an academic, that's pretty much the nuclear option. She was effectively silenced by the very institution she'd spent her entire life studying.
But here's the thing. Her argument wasn't just, I don't believe it. It was way more nuanced than that. It was deeply theological. She was saying, look, the virgin birth is a powerful symbol of Jesus' divine connection to God. It's not a biology textbook. She even pointed out that other big-name theologians like Karl Rahner had called it a pious legend. Plus, she brought up how the biblical genealogies trace Jesus' line through Joseph, which, doesn't make a lot of sense if he's not the biological dad. And her nickname for the literal interpretation, gynecological stork theology. I mean, how sharp is that? Just completely witty and unafraid.
Which brings us perfectly to our next section, shattering the stained glass ceiling. This was her other huge conflict, the role of women in the church. And for her, this wasn't just some abstract academic debate. Oh no, this was a deep, personal, fundamental injustice.
And this quote, this is probably her most famous one. It's so brilliant. It's funny, sure, but the critique buried in there is just razor sharp. She's painting a picture of a system where women are stuck in service roles, while every single position of real power is reserved for men. And she didn't stop there. She had so many of these incredible metaphors. She called the church hierarchy a bachelor's club, a womenless terrarium, and maybe the most powerful one, all shepherds are men and all women are sheep. For her, it was crystal clear, a system of total exclusion based on gender.
So, back to our what-if scenario. What would Pope Uta do about all this?
Well, in this fictional story, her solution isn't some slow, cautious, gradual change. Nope, it's revolutionary.
Pope Uta wastes zero time. Step one, she calls a big meeting, a synod, to open up ordained ministries to women. Step two, she personally ordains the very first women as priests in these huge, historic services. Step three, she appoints women as equals in her inner circle. She doesn't just tweak the system, she completely rebuilds it from the ground up on the principle of equality.
All right, On to her next major conflict, which is all about morality, mercy, and love. Specifically, she took issue with the Church's teachings on some of the most intimate parts of our lives: sexuality, relationships, family, all of it.
And once again, she wasn't just talking off the cuff. She literally wrote the book on it. Her book, Eunuchs for the Kingdom of Heaven, was a massive international bestseller, and in it she carefully documents what she describes as a 2,000-year-long history of hostility and, frankly, fear towards sexuality within the Church.
So naturally, as Pope Uta, she tackles these things head-on. First, contraception. She lifts the ban, but she does more than that. She reframes responsible family planning as something that honors love. Next, celibacy for priests. She makes it optional, calling the mandatory rule absolutely unnatural. And finally, LGBTQ+ inclusion. She not only allows but actively promotes the blessing of same-sex couples everywhere. It's a total 180, all based on a more humane, loving idea of morality.
But her critique went even deeper than just disagreeing with specific rules. And that brings us to our final section, a church for the people. Here, we're going to see how she questioned the very machine that creates these rules in the first place. Like, how does a simple belief turn into an unshakable, binding dogma?
Our source has a name for this, the dynamic spiral, or the dynamic spiral. And here's how it works. Step 1, it starts with the people. A popular belief or devotion springs up from the community. Step 2, the church hierarchy, the all-male leadership, steps in. They formalize it, define it, and turn it into an official, binding doctrine. Step 3, the people accept this new rule, which makes the church's authority seem legitimate. And step 4, that validation solidifies the institution's power. It's this self-perpetuating cycle that just keeps strengthening the top. And this is where her core feminist critique really shines. She saw how this spiral could take something organic and beautiful, like, say, the popular devotion to Mary, and then twist it, codify it, and use it to prop up the patriarchal structure. Suddenly, the lived experiences of women get turned into these rigid rules, all defined and controlled by men.
So what's the takeaway here? Well, Uta Ranke-Heinemann's legacy is that of a courageous, fearless questioner. She demanded intellectual honesty and faith, she demanded that morality be humane, and she demanded that the church be inclusive for everyone. She simply refused to accept the idea that to have faith you had to turn off your brain or shut down your heart.
And that leaves us with the one big question that really sits at the heart of her entire life's work. It's a question she kept asking the church for decades, and it's just as relevant today as it ever was. When tradition clashes with truth, which one is supposed to bend?